Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Achieve with Dr. C podcast for this Friday, November, January 12th, 2024. It's my second broadcast of the year. As you guys know, I'm your work doctor, but I like to bring you things for the whole person. And I am so super excited about the conversation today, but I want to make my attorney happy. I want to make sure I let you guys know this is personal opinion, professional personal opinion, but not meant in any way to substitute for counseling or for any of your other medical needs. Please seek your own medical professional. We're sharing information with you today simply to help you self coach and help you on your journey to becoming the best you can possibly be for God's glory. Now, starting the conversation, let me share a little bit about why I asked this guest to speak to us today and why we're going to chop it up and have a conversation. Um, One of the most prevalent things I work with, both in ministry counseling and in my professional counseling, is people have a lack of satisfaction, low levels of enjoyment, pleasure, and we're all collectively traumatized from the pandemic. And by that, what I mean is we all have experienced what our brains do when we're in drama or trauma is the pleasure center is the first thing the brain shuts off. It shuts it off in order to help you have the coping mechanisms the brain needs to do whatever needs to be done, fight or flight, we normally say. But there's a lot more responses when there's trauma and drama because we have so many more senses than what we know. So, in talking to her, watching her on other broadcasts, her information is so spot on and so godly, but not spooky spiritual. She's real. She's like a girlfriend. She's a girlfriend. And still, the information, you can take it to the bank. So, welcome today, Brittany. I'm going to unmute you. And you might need to unmute yourself.
Hi. Hey, girlfriend.
Welcome. I'm so glad you're here today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for allowing me to join you, for trusting me to have this conversation because, you can't talk. Everything ain't for everybody, right? Especially when we are at these intersections, trauma, pleasure, intimacy, Christianity, it gets murky if you ain't have, and right now we're past the time where, especially about it within the church when they talk about, people who don't, the church don't talk about sex. We are beyond that. The church talks about sex, but the wrong people got the mic.
Oh, I see you come out swinging.
I'm just saying. So I say that to say this is not indictment on anybody or judgment on anybody, but I'm just saying that the fact that because I respect you and hold your opinion in such high regard, because you trust me, I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And yeah, the wrong people have the mic. The wrong information is shared, even generational knowledge and things that we're going to talk about today. We need to do some unlearning and course correction and retraining our bodies, our minds, our brains, how to deal with these two things, pleasure and intimacy. So first, tell us a little bit about you and your work. And then can you give us a nice non-technical explanation about pleasure and intimacy?
Sure. So I am a Christian sexologist that by title, by trade, or by training. I am a licensed social worker. I have degrees in psychology, social work, and human sexuality. And I essentially, all of that means is that I work to bridge the gap between the science and scripture of human sexuality, and not there is a actual gap, but more a knowledge gap between the science and scripture of human sexuality. And that is the work I do every day, empowering Black women, Black Christian women, Christians in general to embrace pleasure and intimacy as God given and God honoring in a way that you said earlier that is not scary, not spooky, but also is, holistic, but also like you get to feel good in a way that you ain't got to repent for afterwards.
Say
So
that.
that's the work that I do. I do it in speaking, teaching. I authored a couple books, opportunities like this, and really one-on-one coaching, which is one of my favorite parts to do, to really kind of help people unlearn and pluck up, some of those deep-rooted things that cause harm and really reduce our access to pleasure and intimacy. And in the simplest, non-technical way, pleasure are the things that feel good to you. And I would like to also offer for you, because if it's good to you but not good for you, then it's not necessarily pleasure, it's an indulgence. Because pleasure you don't have to repent from. Pleasure you don't have to feel bad about afterward, or you shouldn't feel bad about afterwards. Pleasure, how the sensation of it and the thoughts around it should be good and still should be in alignment with your values for it to be true pleasure. Because if you feel bad afterwards, then is it really pleasurable, right? And intimacy, a colleague of mine, Dr. Shamira, says it's being seen, heard, valued, and understood. And in intimacy is such a big word, conceptually, and I kind of be abstract for some people, but in different ways, whether it's emotionally, physically, sexually, spiritually, financially, intellectually, that you feel seen, heard, valued, and understood, and it is a equitable exchange of that experience of being seen, heard, valued, and understood. So you're not the center of anybody's world. Nobody is the center of your world. Everybody holds this place of equity where they are themselves 100%, and that is being welcomed and understood.
Awesome. Now, that's nice and non-technical, but let's just jump right square into it.
Okay.
I talked a little bit about pleasure, and I love that definition. It's what feels good for you, but is also good to you and for you.
Yeah.
And there's so much shame, so much guilt, especially around those of us that might have different values than our behaviors.
Yep.
And we might have formed behaviors to seek pleasure that aren't good for us. So can you talk a little bit more for us about making sure the pleasure you experience, how you experience pleasure, and how it can be good for you?
Yeah. Most times, a pleasurable experience, or if you make a bid or an attempt to experience pleasure, it would always align in what you believe, what you desire, and how you behave. They will all be in alignment. If at any point one of them is out of alignment, then there's a likelihood that it won't, in the long run, be good for you. For example, if what you want and what you believe aren't in alignment, then that can cause like heaviness in your thoughts, and cause you to spiral and worry and things like that. For example, if you want to have sex but you're single and you feel and you believe that God would require abstinence, then we have that concept where we're like, oh, the struggle is real, and then we begin to resent the natural desires that we have. If you then go and act on those desires and have sex and you don't, and then your behavior and your beliefs aren't in alignment, though, then you have that conviction that's afterwards. So while your desires and your behaviors are in alignment, it feels good to you. But when your behaviors and your beliefs aren't in alignment, it's not good for you. right? Because then now you know, convicted, and like that's not good for anybody. Though you know it keeps us in line, in the long run, it's not good for anyone. So ultimately, when you think about it, even for those who may not be believers, if there is a pleasurable experience that has negative consequences on the back end, and actual negative consequences, right? Not because there are times where we take because we're used to just get particularly Black women getting the short end of the stick. When we do things that are pleasurable, then we begin to feel feelings of guilt around it and things like that, because somewhere somebody told us that we don't deserve to feel good. So that is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about actual consequences. That's how you know that is not good for you. But if it is not harming anyone, if it is serving you, if it is rooted in something that you actually believe, and not a desire that has been handed to you by society or any other supposed to be, then you can be safe to feel like, okay, this is probably a pleasurable act.
I love that because, as I said at the beginning, a lot of the counseling and ministry that I do, it centers around the guilt and shame and not having joy, not having satisfaction. You're being in conflict with what you believe. And there's an important point, too, that I find, especially with women, because in the whole act of thinking pleasure belongs only to sex, which we shouldn't, but we do.
Mm-hmm.
We do it over there because women submit and give they're on the receiving end of the whole act. It's different for women than it is for men. And I have found so many women are detached from pleasure. They're not orgasmic. They don't even experience pleasure in their daily lives. So I would love for you to break it down for us, how you can experience pleasure that's way more than sex. That's it's good, but it's small. And then a little bit about women and the shame and the guilt and the unlearning we have to experience about giving ourselves and not feeling taken advantage of, not feeling taken, I guess.
Yeah. Taken and then also feeling consumed. A lot of us, as women are expected or believed to be the nurturers and the givers, and we aren't often seen to have a breaking point, because people just take. And the strength of a woman, when you hear someone explain a strong woman or a strong mother, they talk about giving to the point of exhaustion, giving or never complaining. You hear people say all the time, "Oh, my mom worked and did this and did that, came home, cleaned house, and she never complained." And this idea that there are no emotions or feelings or pain that we experience, and those are why that thought process is why women often are kept out of the conversation of pleasure, as if pleasure, and if we have access to it, happens to be a byproduct of something that we are doing for someone else. And so when we think about experiencing pleasure beyond sex, really start with the senses. Like that's really what we understand or should understand sensuality to be, is how we engage with the world and others through our senses. And so for somebody who is like, I don't know where to start, or when I think about pleasure, I only think about sex, think about start with the things you learned as a kid, your five senses, or the touch or feeling being another sense recently. But like, what do you like to look at? What is a pleasure to behold, right? What do you like to feel on your skin? What don't you like to feel on your skin? So are you mindful of the fabrics that you purchase or use, or the thread count on your sheets? And I say that all the time. What's in your diet? Are you eating things that taste good and are good for you? Because we eat people, we love, as America, we love to celebrate with food. And when we tell people who've had a hard day, go get you a good meal, get you something good to eat. But remember that pleasure, also for it to be fully, truly pleasurable, it also needs to be good, for you. So we're thinking about things that you taste. What does your home look like? What does your home smell like? Like, are you, washing your baseboards and cleaning behind the refrigerator every couple of months so that you're not going nose blind to the scents in your home? Like, that's like kind of introductory, but if we start there, then you can build from there. And from there, you begin to curate those sources of non-sexual pleasure for yourself. And then the people around you who are really there for you, who truly love you, will then begin to fall in line, because they're going to begin to treat you how you treat you. People take their cues on how to honor your boundaries from you. So if you don't, they won't. Right. And if you aren't good to yourself, then they may not feel so led to be good, to you. It is, Jesus is the one, the unconditional loving one. He's the one that treats us better than we treat ourselves. But not all the time do we have that experience with humanity. So to really just figure out what pleasure could be like, just start with your senses, and it can become more intricate from there. But for women, to your other point, just understanding that you are human first, and your worth and value is not rooted in how much you can do, how much you can produce, how much you can perform, how much you can take, right? We use that language a lot to highlight the strength of somebody as what they can take, what they can bear. And then we get into this kind of grin and bear Olympics to see you're better for it if you can take the most of it, but with a smile, and you unbothered and unshaken and things like that. But life is hard and things bother you, and you don't get a cookie for acting like, they don't. I don't want to let them see me sweat. I'll never cry in front of them. And we're all guilty of it. And there's certain spaces that's not appropriate. But if you have nowhere in your life where you can take that armor off, then that is a life that lacks true pleasure.
Yes, that should be a huge red flag for you as you think about pleasure. You think about what feels good for you, to you, and engaging your senses. A lot of women have guilt, and men too. I think on the flip side, for men, the men that I talk to, they have been so hypersexualized and taught their only experience in the world is to get pleasure through sex. And what I think needs to be learned and experienced is tuning into what brings you pleasure. That's not the quick fix. It's not the sex. It's not the drugs. It's not the drinking. It's not the shopping. All those things that lead to toxic behavior. And also strength as a behavior. I have tried my best to disassemble in my life because, I was one of those don't let them see me sweat, overachiever, and watched a friend have a nervous breakdown. And once I saw that and realized there's no virtue, it's unbalanced. So I seek now for balance. I seek now for rest. And you talk about sheets. My sheets are super expensive, but girl, I love to sleep on them.
I can imagine.
And I love smell. I have a very sensitive olfactory system. My sense of smell it's incredible. I'm like a beagle. So having things smell good is super important for me. And associating smells with pleasure, super important to me. Well, I like flowers. I buy guys in my life, I buy them flowers. Because they have to learn there's pleasure in more of life. And like James said, men have more of an issue being able to access that part of life, that pleasure part of life that isn't sex.
Yeah.
So when you deal with men, what are some of the, because they'll listen to sheets and smell and think that's girly.
Right. Right.
It's not. It's not.
Right.
What are some things you might tell a man that's, you know, only time I feel good is if I'm having sex?
Yeah. I would get it's honestly, I would give the same statement to a man that I would to a woman, that you are human and you deserve to feel good and you deserve to take that armor off, and just to remind them or call them to consider how exhausting it
Mhm.
can be to wear this armor all the time. Because essentially, if you think that you only are good enough for one source of pleasure, that's a armor, and it's also it's very reductionist, because you're so much more than that. You're so much better than that. It is okay to be like, I would call them to kind of shift their idea of this concept of like what's soft, like, those things that, are feminine and all of those things, but love and care and nurture and, peace and all of those things. There's nothing wrong with wanting to feel those things or wanting to feel relaxed. We need those spaces because, particularly for our Black men, this world, this society, this white supremacist society that we are in, that is literally set up against you, you already have to bear arms out there in your home, in your safe spaces, in the spaces with the people who love you. You shouldn't do that. And if you feel like even in those spaces that you have to do that, then I would reevaluate how safe you really feel around, these people. Because when you keep the armor up, you're keeping things in, but you're also keeping things out. Like, so people who do love you, who do want to show up for you, who do want to make you feel good, they can't penetrate those places that you got blocked and guarded. There's a difference between being, prepared and wise and being guarded. And some of us have created these like barbed wire fences because we don't want anyone to come in, because trauma has taught us that certain things and experiences aren't safe. But in the same way we block pleasure, when we try to keep pain away, we keep pleasure. It's the same mechanism that keeps pleasure out too.
Yes, you can build a boundary or you can build a wall.
Mm-hmm.
And walls people have to crawl over, and few of us have the stomach or the bandwidth to be crawling over people's walls. And so we neglect. And I would venture to tell men, as I tell my brothers and people that come in my environment, this is an environment of peace. It's also a safe place. It's safe for you to be a man. It's safe for you to be a woman. It's safe for you to be a human. But there are boundaries.
Yep.
And in experiencing pleasure, I think rest for men, being vulnerable, like James said, men need to be comfortable and not swing to this pendulum now where we have men up in arms to take their rights. And I love to teach, your rights end where mine begin.
Yeah.
That's just the human state.
Yeah.
You can't enforce your rights and your right to pleasure, your right to peace, and put the key in anyone's hands. So for men, I ask them, you've got to be you have to exercise your own self place in the world for yourself as a man.
Yeah.
And those false images of nothing bothers me, that's toxic. Because like you said, the world sucks sometimes.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
it does. And it would have you to believe, like, the everyday occurrences would have you to believe that there is no good to experience. So you have to go get it yourself and take it and create your own spaces of pleasure, and not with the thought that it doesn't necessarily have to be good for you. That's the thing. We don't do a lot of, even though self-care is such a big sexy word right now, we don't really do a lot of self care. What we do is a lot of self-indulgence. Like we love, Dr. Raquel Martin says this, we do a lot of the spas and the getaways and the weekends and the drinking and the girls' night and the brunches and all the things. Those are indulgences. Care really, again, is that thing that feels good to you, but also for you. And then also recognizing that there are some things that we have to do that is care that may not necessarily feel good in the moment, but is good for us in the long run, which then tills the land for a harvest of pleasure, right? Like there are some times where we are pleasure means planting certain seeds, right? So when we look at finances, sometimes living on a budget, or like, if you're getting ready to buy a beautiful home for a little while prior to, there's a little bit of like limitations to how you move and how you flow and what you do and what you can buy. And that may not necessarily feel good, but you're planting those seeds for a pleasurable harvest in the long run. And then once this is done and you're in your beautiful home and it's made the way you want it, and you're not having to make any sacrifices on the type of furniture you wanted because you planted those seeds ahead of time. So if we begin to look, we really would do ourselves a disservice when we reduce pleasure to those indulgences.
And that's the only time we'll allow that feeling of pleasure is when we're being self-indulgent, and that behaviorally produces a greed within you to more and more and more and more, even to dishonor yourself, your body, because greed is never satisfied.
Yeah. And then it opens up the door even for that guilt and shame.
Yes.
Greed holds the door open for shame to come in behind it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's this balance, and everybody's saying, like Dr. Scott, he's saying, this is a very timely conversation, because I just know for me, dealing with people trying to recalibrate, to stop that 2021, 2023 just war against anything stable, any type of pleasure, any type of feeling safe, being safe. All of that was under attack.
Yeah.
And many of us listening, even those listening to the rebroadcast, you're finding yourself what you acquired to cope, just so you could feel good and feel human and experience the world in some sort of state that wasn't pain.
Yeah.
We've become addicted, or like the negative things are on the rise. I don't want to give them a lot of space because they're talked about ad nauseum.
Yeah.
Really want to drive this home about experiencing pleasure. As I started, when I told you and told everybody, that is one of the first things to go when we're traumatized.
Yeah.
And the brain does that because the brain is a single processor. It's efficient. God made our brain so efficient. So when we're overloaded, the brain will then shut itself down with that pleasure so you can recalibrate.
Yeah.
So you can respond to the moment the most. Brain loves new stuff. So it automates the regular and it loves the new stuff. So new stuff is survival, new stuff is changing what you do. That pleasure center is numb for most people. And most people are numb. I know for me also, in learning sexuality, I've learned a lot of women suffer with that guilt. They suffer from a numb vagina. They just don't experience a whole lot. They're unfamiliar, they're uneducated, and don't know. They don't experience anything with their total body unless they're giving it away.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not a good receiver. I'm learning. I'm becoming a great receiver.
Yeah.
So when we talk about receiving pleasure, experiencing pleasure, moving it out of sex, and talking about things that aren't self-indulgent,
Mm-hmm.
I think your point is so important, and I hope everybody catches it. Don't confuse self-indulgence and what the world has told us. Oh, this is self-care.
Mm-hmm.
This is self-care.
Mm-hmm.
That may not be self-care for you. That
Right.
may not be what
Right.
you need.
Right.
You've got to tune in and find what feels pleasurable for you, that's
Right.
good to you, good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And think about, and the thing is that this, the conversation about the indulgences isn't to say that we aren't to do those things, right? You just want to make sure that they are landing how you want them to land because you've established the foundation first and foremost. Like, what's the good of having a massage membership that you go to monthly
Mhm.
if you've not been to the doctor in 2 years? If you know that you need blood work, if you're not taking your medication,
Mm.
but you're rubbing and oiling down, skin and your muscles are good, but your blood pressure and the cholesterol is through the roof. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Your gut
your
is a mess.
massages, you feel good, you relaxed and ease, and the muscles aren't tense, but you're dying on the inside, and you're one step
Yeah.
from a cardiac arrest. Like, you know what I'm saying? So you
Yes.
need to make sure, like, again, for believers, like our bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit. So you need to make sure that you are caring for the temple inside and out, right? Also caring for the temple in your relationships. Like, brunch is awesome. Who doesn't love brunch? I love a brunch. But if you are at brunch with people who you are not sure if they really love you, you're not sure, you feel like the only reason why they invited you is because they want you to pay the check, because you feel like you don't feel comfortable around them because you don't dress like how they dress, and and you feel like they're talking about you, or whatever the case. What good is that? What good is, promoting all the dates that you've been on if you know that this man or this woman is never going to take you seriously? Like, and in your heart of hearts, you really want a long-term relationship. So these dates don't really feel as good as you post to be, POST. Like, okay. And so the indulgences are not a problem per se.
Mhm.
They cannot be the sum total of the care that you provide for yourself. Because as you said, when we get into this place of numbness, we jump to these extremes because we want to feel
Yes.
something that's not the weight and the pain of our everyday life. So we like the novelty of a spa, of a flight, that's this whole, catch flights, not feelings type of mindset, is because you want to forget what you got going on at home.
Right.
And and we all do this escapist mindset. We all do it.
Yes.
Like, it's not a coincidence that when you're married, sex on vacation or in a hotel is different somehow than the sex that you have in your bedroom with the bills and the kids surrounding you. Like, it's just how our minds work and function. So it's not necessarily a problem. We're all doing it, but you want to make sure you are handling your business first, and the business of your body first, the business of your mind, the business of your spirit, first. Like, going to church, shouting good, the spirit is high, the choir is good, you shouting, chucking and bucking and speaking in tongues, but then you don't pick up your Bible for the rest of the week. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what are we doing? And we get to the place where we need these miraculous high spirit, experiences, because we're not tilling the land on an everyday basis. A lot of our need for miracles would be thwarted if we just had better stewardship.
Yes. Say that.
You know what I'm saying? Because he is a miracle worker. He sure is. But let him work a miracle when a miracle was actually needed, and not because of our poor decision making. Then now he got to get us out of something that we probably, if we would have made better decisions, we wouldn't have been in the first place.
And you said something. I love to tell myself, have a life I don't need a vacation from. Vacation just gravy.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to, like, Tanisha was saying her self-care has been misperceived as self-indulgent. And I would encourage you, Tanisha, just do the evaluation we're talking about
Mhm.
and tune in and look at your life, listen to your life, listen to your body,
Yeah.
and I like to do a body scan. I teach that. If you go to my website, if you go to my social media, if you scroll back, I teach a lot about body scan. And people like to make that spooky spiritual or new age. It isn't. It's called being wise. It's
Mhm.
called caring for your temple. If you're waking up every day and you're in pain,
Mhm.
pain is a signal that God gave us to tell us we need to pay attention to something.
Yeah.
And so all the things we're talking about, getting that baseline so your
Yeah.
life feels good, then all the things you do is not as important as who you are,
Yeah. Yeah.
how you're showing up in the world
Yeah.
for yourself.
Yeah.
So, in deepening that too, I love what Lillian said. She said, if she's not stimulated mentally, she's not stimulated sexually.
Yeah.
Us intellects love that statement because, conversation can either turn me on or off
Yeah.
or anything further.
Yeah.
But I've also been guilty of living in my intellect.
Yeah.
It brought me great pleasure and was a great pushing away of
Yeah.
people.
Great guard. Yeah.
Because yeah, it's a guardian. It's a guard and not a wall.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead. I think I feel good about how we've explained pleasure.
Right.
Let's talk about intimacy. I love the definition
Mhm.
of being seen, heard, and valued.
Mhm.
I love to call intimacy into me, you see.
Mhm. 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 And
So,
that's the same, right? Of being seen, her value, and understood being that key piece, because it's like, and I also like to call it being completely naked, the freedom to be completely naked, even when you're fully clothed. And that's this idea that I am standing in front of you, bearing my all, and you hold space for that. You welcome that. I don't have to feel ashamed, regardless of the situation, because I can trust my deepest and darkest, my wildest, with you. And that goes to, like, how much money I make, to, I when you ask me what can I pray for, I literally tell you what you can pray for, and not, like the life, health, and strength, to try to like cover, because we don't really want to talk about what we really need prayer for, and that like spiritual intimacy, or even what my wildest dream is. Like, I've told the whole Facebook at this point, but I really want to be an EGOT. Like, I really believe that there's something in me that God gave me, that I could be an EGOT. Now, I don't know if I'm gonna be the actual actor or with producer, director, writer, whatever, but I see an EGOT in my future. But there was a point where I had a relationship where I couldn't share that. And first and foremost, because he wouldn't even have known what an EGOT was. And that in and of itself was enough to piss me off.
you don't even know.
You don't even know what an EGOT is. And the fact that I even need to explain that was just like, okay, yeah, this is, and that's not being elitist or anything, but that just, if you don't know what that is, I can see that, and I was accurate that it would create a life where I'm consistently going to have to explain things when I'm excited about things, if I'm upset about things. So like, it's something intimate about being something coming across the news or across social media or happening at work or whatever, and I explain what happened, and they immediately respond like, oh, I know that set you off. Yes, it did, because you see me, you know me, and then you know how to respond. If I got to bring you along with my anger, with my excitement, it's exhausting, you know what I mean? And so intimacy is important, because it when we talk about our bodies and pleasure as well, it really is connected to like our prognosis in life, like our literal well-being. Like people who report, like studies have shown, the people who report having access or experiences to intimate settings, they report better overall life satisfaction. Their health is better when people are ill or have chronic illnesses and they have intimate friends or family. Their prognosis is better when they're going, when you have someone who's going through chemo, if they have somebody who takes them every day, picks them up every day, or folks who sit with them, like, you know, the side effects just don't hit as much and they fight a little bit hard. And people that's why they, even when you look at like transplants, they are concerned about giving you a transplant if you don't have certain systems or structures in your, or support in your life to make sure you have the care and support necessary to navigate, you know, that process. That's how vital intimacy is to our lives. But Hollywood has gotten hold of it and, you know, covered it in candles and rose petals and slow music.
Romance.
The romance of it, the, you know, the lights, camera, action of it all. We really, again, very reductionist, doesn't really reduces and eliminates the purity and the beauty and really the power that intimacy is.
And going back to, first of all, I explained what an EGOT is, because I see that for you. You're this light and you have this great voice and camera presence and everything I've seen you on. You definitely, I could see that. And anybody that knows you, that would know that's important to you, they have to be like this, you know, this, not tuned in. So I'm gonna give you that, and I explained it because some people may not know.
Yeah.
And so the next time somebody says I'm an EGOT in the making, now you know. Getting back to intimacy, because being able to be vulnerable, to allow, and I don't know if allow is a good word, it's the word I have to use for myself, to open the kimono, to invite people in, to feel the safety that allows you to show yourself, to speak your truth, and to walk in your value, to not be known for what you cost, but known for what you're worth. See, I say that in business all the time. Oh yeah, it costs a lot, but it's because of what I'm worth. So, and I don't argue that point. There's a place you have to get to. You have to remove layers. And allow that where it's safe to do so. Talk to us about how to determine if something is safe for you. Because sometimes I think we give away our secrets. We cast our pearls before swine. We open our kimono to the wrong people. And we also listen to people, the wrong people with the mic. I think
in order to do that, we have to practice what I like to call responsible vulnerability. And so being able to use wisdom in our interactions and engagements with everyday people, and then understand that what is being shared, exposed, you know, offered, whatever, has to align with the relationship trajectory. And so by that, I mean, let's take dating, for example. If I am dating someone, there are certain conversations that I'll have that with on a first, second, third date, that is just staples, because if we're not on the same page with these things, then there's no need for us to continue to date, right? For example, I don't intend on having any more children, and I am abstinent. So within the first and second date, when you start having that, you know, what are you looking for conversation, early on is when I had that conversation about, you know, those expectations, because there's no sense in us spending time with one another if you want 2 more babies, and we're not even going to do that to each other now, because I am a joy. I'm not going to let you fall in love with me, and I'm not giving you no kids. So we might as well nip that in the bud right then and there, right? But so sharing in that beginning stage that I don't plan on having children is a responsible vulnerability, because while I may run the risk of it ending a relationship, it's necessary because of where the relationship is at the moment and where I could potentially want it to go. Now, my reason for not wanting to have children is not first or second or maybe even third date conversation. Now, when we begin to get into an exclusive, committed relationship, then that's where, some of the traumas and those things may begin to come out, because you have then been vetted. And if I've decided that I trust you enough and value your opinion and support enough to cut everybody else off my roster, and it's just me and you, and now I am exclusive with you, which means I am now accountable to you, then that means you should have shown yourself trustworthy enough for me to share my why behind me not wanting, any more children. And the same with abstinence. I'm telling you that from the beginning, because if you thought that it was going to be different, no need for you to even be here. But now we're in a committed relationship. Now we get to talk about sexual expectations, because if we're in a committed relationship, and with me, obviously marriage is a possibility. And so now we're talking about sexual expectations because of the trajectory of where this relationship is going. We need to begin to see if we see eye to eye in that place. Some people, unfortunately, trauma has convinced them to, or forced them to use irresponsible vulnerability. They either trauma dump in like a show and prove kind of way, like, I'm gonna give you everything, and if you really loves me, or if you really want me, then you need to know all that comes with me. But really what that is sabotage. Because you don't really believe that you are worth loving with all of the stuff that comes with you, your baggage or whatever, however you term it. And you do that as a way to prove that, as a self-fulfilling prophecy. But what you actually did, you didn't prove anything. What you did was scare them off, not because of all that came with you, but it's because I don't know you, and you just told me all of this. So now I question your decision making. So I don't know if you are the one for me, not because of your sexual trauma, your health issues, and none of that. But you just told a stranger your entire life story. Now I wonder if you had the ability to keep things that are secret and private in my life. So now I question your discretion.
Right. Because you're not discreet with your own secrets.
Correct.
Why would I expect you to be? And trauma dumping. Let's talk about that. It is a coping mechanism. Yeah. And people that are traumatized tend to self-sabotage is a way to go ahead and get the rejection, get the lack of acceptance, get the abuse, get it popping the way I'm used to.
Yeah, it's gonna come anyway.
Yeah. And also, the difficulty of valuing and walking away from situations. There's almost a desperation to be liked, a desperation to be wanted, a desperation to be loved. That feeds that trauma dump, that self-sabotage. Been guilty of it myself. Like you, walking in abstinence. I gave up recreational, pretend marriage relationships with men, not because I don't like sex, not because I'm a prude, not all these things. One guy even told me being with you is like a job interview. You don't go Skippy. You interviewing to be my man. And right now you get a pink slip. But for me, that trauma dumping behavior, I see it from so many women. They unfairly do this to some new dude, some guy that showed you a little bit of interest. You throw everything at him, including your body, and then you wonder why. That's all he wanted.
Yeah.
You don't take the time to become intimate or seen.
Yeah, and you confuse sex with intimacy, and that's how we know societally we don't really understand true intimacy or true vulnerability, because we don't understand the intimate nature of sex, which is why we have it so casually, and we are free with our sex and the sex that we have, but we get an attitude when somebody comes to our house uninvited. Like the stuff that we are upset about, like we have, unprotected sex, but don't like drinking after people. Like it's just like, the math all the time.
Math ain't mathing.
The math don't be mathing, right? And it is because of this misunderstanding of true intimacy and a disregard for our bodies. Because believer or not, like believers is crucial, because we understand that our bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit. But even not a believer, your body is literally the longest relationship that you've ever had. Like you were in a relationship with your body before your parent, your mother, like everybody else. It was you and your body first, even if for a split second. That was it. And so we and it's also the thing that we disregard so much, but it's so deeply connected to our personality, to how we show up in the world, to our purpose, because it is our body that carries us through into our purpose on earth. And so you are compromising your purpose when you disregard your body and you encourage and create an environment or a culture of disregard with the people that you welcome into your space, because they mirror the way they treat you based on how you treat you. Right. And we have convinced ourselves that it's not that deep, it's not that serious. I'm a savage, I'm out here, we can da. That's what you've told yourself to make yourself feel better about the fact that what you want, what you believe, and how you behave are in misalignment. And most times it's because, particularly for believers, what we believe is using the route it takes for what we believe takes too long to get to what we want. So it's different. That's what happened, because it's taken too long. But we decide to reroute and go at it our own way.
Bless ourselves.
Exactly. Bless ourselves. And we do, we don't recognize, again, in this world where technology is getting greater and more people are inventing more and more, like, it's mind-blowing the stuff that is happening right now. But because of that, and we are already in a microwave society, where someone on Instagram said, we are used to instant gratification. Yes. And so the way of value, the way of belief, the way of sanctification is the scenic route. And we don't want the scenic route. Not when perceived pleasure is right here.
Right.
If I pay enough money to Comcast Xfinity, I can get pleasure in 0.27 seconds. But you want me to hold on, for the believer, you want me to hold on to God's unchanging hand so he can take his sweet time, because no man know the hour. I know the hour right here. Matter of fact, Tinder swipe left, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's because I got stuck at the light. And you know what I'm saying? That's really, if we really being 100, that's really what the issue is. We have lost our stamina, and we lack patience to hold on for what is possible, what is purposed for us, and we get snowed by what is all the myriad of things that are available. So we just pluck for what's available. But we have to begin to ask ourselves, are the things that we have in our life, the things that we covet in our life, are these what we really, really want, or what we've settled for because it was the easiest to obtain?
Let's just, let's marinate on that right now. Because what you just said summarizes a lot of things I hear, that the dissatisfaction, the lack of pleasure, the lack of quality relationships, because we're created for healthy relationships. We have to have it, skin touch, all these things, community, immunity, all the things you talked about as far as the value of intimacy,
Yeah.
I can tell you the truth. Not wanting to take the narrow way
Yeah.
and expediting
Yeah.
and blessing myself,
Yeah.
1000% of the things I'm working through and rearranging and getting restitution and healing from
Mm-hmm.
starts from that decision to do that.
Yep. Yep.
To jump out of waiting on God, in my belief, and this is true whether you're a believer or not.
Absolutely.
It's a principle of
Yep.
first.
Yep.
It's a principle.
Yep.
It's a scientific principle. It's a life principle. It's a physical principle. It's the principle of first.
Yep.
And first require good decisions first.
Yep.
And taking pleasure and putting it on top. And we're not really even experiencing true pleasure or
No,
true intimacy.
no, we're not.
We have false intimacy and temporary pleasure, because I've learned this: pleasure with God, it lasts.
Eternal.
It doesn't fade.
Mm-hmm.
It builds. It grows. It's a
Mhm.
seed. Every
Mhm.
time you experience it, and it can get better and better and better.
Mm-hmm.
It's the truth. Whether people want to accept it, it's like gravity. Throw a rock in the air.
It's going
God's
to
already established principle is going to take effect.
It's
Because
going to Yeah. Yeah.
intimacy is so needed in society, because, again, going back to helping people that I help, few people feel heard. I don't know very many people that really feel valued anywhere, not at work, not at home,
Mhm.
themselves. And definitely being seen is where we've all settled.
Mhm.
That's why we have these portraits of life on social media, posting, pretending, because at least it's seen. We're with somebody somewhere and we're so busy posting the perfect picture,
Mhm.
we're not spending time together.
Mhm.
We're taking pictures so we can show everybody else we're spending time together.
Yeah, we're watched. That's not the same thing as being seen.
Woo. Okay, break that down.
So when you
Down.
because when you watch something, like you watch film, you watch a basketball game, when you go to aquarium and you look at the or the zoo, you just look at those things. But to see something is to really take in the essence of and the purpose and the understanding of who this or what this thing or this person actually is. And social media, people are watched and consumed. They are not seen for what all you are able to do. All we are able to look at is what fits inside that little square, what fits inside those pixels, what we have created or curated for people to be able to view. That's it. That's all. We don't see our favorite influencers, even the most transparent or what we understand to be authentic of influencer or popular social media people, still only let you look at what they want you to look at. That's it. That's all, because they keep parts of themselves for their family, for themselves, for whatever. And it is the whole of a person that you need to be able to truly see them for who and what they are. And because we edit ourselves for public consumption, we are very few spaces where we are truly seen. And that's why the hope is that in romantic and, for me, in spiritual places, I don't want to have to come into those places. Even my platonic places, I don't want to have to come into those places edited and photoshopped. I want to come in as me, filter off as is. And that is not to say I want to be able to run amok and behave how I want to behave. No, I'm going to show up how I am. And the people who love me are going to be like, get right. They're going to pull my coattail, to what I need to, areas I need to mature or improve in for sure. But I don't want to have to carry the baggage of my representative. I got
Right.
enough stuff on my own.
Yes. I don't want to be surrounded by a fan club.
Yeah.
I want family.
Yep.
I want people that can speak truth to me
Yep.
in love. That even though I don't like it, and I have that with my youngest brother,
Mhm.
even though I don't like sometimes, but he's God's vessel to speak male things into my life,
Mhm.
along with my oldest brother, who I can call. And I don't always like what they say, because sometimes I think they're a tad harsh and hard.
Yeah.
But I always take it in because I know they love me.
Yeah.
I know they want the best for me.
Yeah.
So that's a seen place for me.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of other places. Most places were watched.
Yep.
I love that. You just gave me something. It's in big bold letters. Because I've been asking people, please put your phones up and let's just stay off our phone. Just take our pictures up front, get your perfect picture, and then let's try to enjoy each other.
Yeah.
And if you'd rather be on the phone, then what we
Wow.
do? And
Yeah.
Even brain surgeons or astrophysicists, because we joke and say if it's not brain surgery, somebody's not going to die. Why are you on the phone? So many nuggets. This conversation just over and above what I expected. Gotta have you back.
Yes, ma'am.
So we can tell us how we can find you. Tell us the things we could expect. Some of your research and all the products and things. Just tell us about
Yeah. So I am at the Intimacy Firm on everything. That's my website, theintimacyfirm.com. Facebook at the Intimacy Firm. Most of my cutting up happens on Instagram at the Intimacy Firm. I'm trying to dip my toe into TikTok, same thing, but we pray about it. But as far as what's coming up, my research, I am working on my dissertation. Pray my strength, y'all. And I'm studying, my research is on the sexual scripts of Black Pentecostal millennials and how their sexual behaviors either align or misalign with scripture. So I am really in the really early beginning stages of it. So just, pray for me. Hopefully, if everything works out, I'll be able to graduate May of 25. So there's that. As far as what's available now, I have 2 card decks that are out in the pre-order stage right now. It's called Daring Discussions. One is Daring Discussions, sex talk that doesn't have to lead to the bedroom for single Christians. And the second one, newly released in time for Valentine's Day, is Daring Discussions Undefiled, sex talk that will bless your bedroom. And these are for married Christian folk who are, or really anybody who is designed specifically for Christians. However, if you are not Christian and you bought it, it's designed for those people who are not really pleased with what's happening in their bedroom and we're looking for a resource to kind of improve, but don't really know where to start with the conversation. And the same with the other cards. For those who are abstinent or really want to begin to have in a safe way, the conversation of sexual expectations and history and things like that. That's what those cards were created for. I also have a workbook for Christian women. It's called Naked and Unashamed, Building Sexual Confidence as a Christian Woman. It's available on Amazon. So
amazing resource. Great book. You just are. I'm so blessed I found you. I'm so blessed to have you shining lights and knowledge and just girlfriend talk and learning from you and building up this white part of me, but also just me as a human, as a person. So thank you for sharing. You're such a giver. And please go to the website, get the merch, get the cards, listen in. She's got a few of her appearances. And again, she has the best voice. You're so easy to listen to.
Thank you.
So I just prophetically speak over you that EGOT is in your future. So, and we will keep you in prayer for that dissertation. I know, but you're surrounded by support. So you'll do it. You'll do it. Thank you again for sharing, everyone. We'll have her back because I know this was a short hour and 4 minutes. So we'll have her back to have deeper conversation and get really real. This was so good. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to go ahead and jump off. I will let you guys know my next conversation. I'll be publishing that, and my Instagram is still locked up, but you can see it on all my other social media. So thank you for joining the Achieve with Dr. C podcast, and thank you, Dr. Brittany.
Thank you.
See you next time. Be blessed, y'all. See you next time.